Alright guys, so I'm about to get really blunt about this refrigerator. If you remember from our last video, this is the 2118 Norcold refrigerator. It's an absorption type refrigerator and it's been nothing but a pain in the ass. Now I know a lot of you guys out there have had issues with this same type of refrigerator, these nevercolds or these Norcold refrigerators. I've seen so many things in forums and online articles that a lot of you guys are having problems getting these things down to the right temperature in the refrigerator, really struggling to get it down, say below about 40 degrees. Well, we have a little bit of a different problem where our refrigerator, we can get it as cold as we need it to. It's this freezer that won't get down to where it should be. To really be able to store anything in these things long term, especially any kind of protein or any kind of meat, this thing needs to be down to about 0 degrees consistently. And this thing is lucky to get down to about 10 degrees. And with this thing going through the damn defrost cycle about once every 36 hours, this thing tends to hang out a lot at like 15 or 20 degrees, which is just completely unacceptable. I've scoured the entire freaking internet about this issue, and I've tried all of the troubleshooting tips that everybody suggests. So that means checking the door seals, making sure that the freezer compartment isn't leaking, adding a recirculation fan in there, making sure that the fans on the back side of the refrigerator are working properly. And I've even gone as far as to kind of redesign or rebuild the exhaust part of the chimney in the back to make sure that that air is coming out of that top vent like it should be. And none of those things have fixed our issue for us. So last month we were at the Grand Design National Rally, and the refrigerator was one of the issues that we brought up to the technician. They listened to me bitch and moan about this thing, and they kind of went behind me and verified all of the things that I had already done in all of my troubleshooting, and they agreed that I had pretty much done everything I possibly could up to that point. And the only other solution that they could come up with was to get me a new control board for the back side of this unit. Now that's great, I really did appreciate their efforts, but at the same time, I don't think they really bought into the idea that the new control board was going to fix my issue either. However, they did get one on order for me. I got it in the mail the other day. They didn't charge me a dime for it, and I'm going to get that board replaced to see if we can simply make this refrigerator do what it's supposed to do. So let's go out there, have a look at what this is going to take to replace the control board and see if we can't finally get this piece of shit fixed. Okay, so here we are outside. We are behind the refrigerator. I've gone ahead and pulled the cover off. Now I want to say that I have also prepped some of the work. So as you can see here, I've got a meter that I'm going to be able to check this thing is de-energized. You want to always make sure that anytime you work on anything electrical, that you make sure that it is de-energized first. You don't want to be surprised by anything. The second thing to kind of go along with that is that this whole thing is de-energized. I have turned off the refrigerator inside. I've removed the fuses, and I'm going to unplug it here in just a second from the 120 volt outlet. So everything is turned off, but I'm still going to use that meter to make sure that everything is fully de-energized. Okay, so we're going to get to it here. I'm going to get started, and I'm just going to kind of walk through the process as I go. But don't worry, I will fast forward through all of the stuff that you really just don't want to see. So this is just a 120 volt power cord that powers up the 120 side of all of this. And it's also got a ground connection that's connected over here on the left. All right, so before I go any farther, I'm actually going to take a picture here of what this looks like right now, and I'm going to kind of do that maybe a couple of spots along the way. That's always a good idea to do whenever you are disconnecting any kind of electrical gear, is to take a picture of it so that you know how to put it back together and get all the wires in all the right places. So I'll be taking a few pictures here throughout the process. All right, so I've already noticed one issue here, and so it looks like the 120 connection on the board is a bit crispy. So it's probably a good thing that I'm doing this. I don't think that that's going to be where my issue is with the problems I'm having with the refrigerator. So I don't think I really emphasized how bad that actually was. In my experience, that's exactly how electrical fires get started. And I think we narrowly escaped a really bad situation there. Okay, so I'm looking at the cord here. This is the plug that goes into the board itself. And you can see it is pretty melted up in here. So this has gotten really hot at some point. I don't know when that was, but this is definitely not good. As a matter of fact, when I look down in here, I can't even identify the female metal prong that should be in there where this seats onto that board. So there's been some significant damage here, and it's a really good thing that I'm taking care of this. Now, like I said, I don't know what the problem is here. I'm hoping that there is no issue that's gonna cause the next one to do the same thing. All I'm gonna be able to do at this point is just replace this cord, which the new board came with a new cord, and then maybe, come back out later and check it to make sure that everything's okay, because I don't really have any indication of why this is bad at this point. Maybe when I open it up, I'll see something different, but at this point, all I see is a charred prong there, and then the female connection here is pretty melted. And again, like I said, I can't even see the female connecting prongs inside. Okay, so I've checked that both the 120 volt AC source coming in and the 12 volt DC source are both de-energized. So now I feel like I can relatively comfortably continue the work. If I find anything else that I find a little bit suspicious, you can bet that I'll check that as well. All right guys, so this is the board that we're going to be replacing. Looks like there's quite a few connections on here, so I may go get some tape and identify all of them. I may just be able to take a picture, not sure yet, but we definitely have to make sure that we get all of these connections back in the right places. Otherwise, best case scenario, the refrigerator won't work. The worst case scenario, we could blow something up. So we don't want to do that. So let's just take our time, make sure we get this right. All right guys, so there are 4 black wires that look very similar to each other. So I just labeled those 1, 2, 3, and 4. It might be kind of hard to see in the picture. I just did it with a black Sharpie on a black wire, but fortunately I can see them. That's all that really matters. And then the other wires look like they are all relatively easy to make sure I get back in the right position. So I think I've got everything identified that I need, and I'm gonna go ahead and start disconnecting everything. You know what, first before we do that, let me pull out this new part just to compare them to make sure that I'm not going through all this for nothing. Okay, so it looks like we got a good board here. It's the right one. It's got all the right numbers on it. So we'll go ahead and take this apart and get this new one put in. So one thing when you're pulling these apart, you just want to make sure that you don't tug on anything too much or too hard or too quickly. Just be gentle with it. You just don't want to break any of these wires or these connections, these connectors, because then you'd really be in a world of hurt. If you're going to use pliers on these, you got to be careful again, because you don't have that feel, that touch to know if you're pulling anything apart. So I got the new part off. Again, you can see here, this one's pretty crusty. It's gotten pretty warm. So I don't know what the cause of that was. It could have been a problem with the cable itself, just a poor connection inside of it. That's usually what causes this type of defect, is there's a high resistance connection in there, meaning the two prongs, the male and the female parts of the prongs don't meet up very well. And so that just causes some very high resistance, which causes a lot of heat, and you can end up burning up connections like this. So I'm hoping that's all that it was, and this new cord, this new cable is going to make sure that I don't end up in this same situation. All right, now I've got the new part. I'm just gonna reverse what I did. I'm gonna make all these connections, and then we'll plug everything back up, start it up. And like I said before, we'll give it probably a couple of days to see if this makes much of a difference. Again, I'm not sold, but you know, we'll see what happens. All right, and when you put these back on, you wanna make sure that everything is firmly seated. Make sure that there's no gaps anywhere. That's what could cause those high resistance connections and cause things to burn up. So I've already forgotten the exact pins that these wires go on. So I'm just gonna look at my picture, make sure that I got it right, because I really don't wanna mess this up. So that was pretty easy. I don't know what I was thinking. There are 6 wires, 6 prongs, so really not that difficult. All right, almost there. Just got to put the cover back on. Got a few more connections to make and then we'll be done. Okay, so before we can get the card back in there, we just need to take this little backing plate off of the card. There we go. Should just pop right out, kind of like that. Got the new one popped back on there, and now we're ready to mount it. One thing I will mention here is that if the refrigerator has been running prior to this, which it probably was, some of these components in here might be a little warm, so just be careful not to burn yourself. All right, got the new cord here with the non-crispy end. So this is the last thing we've got here. So I'm gonna go ahead and plug it in, and then we'll go inside and make sure that everything works. All right, that's it. We're all plugged up, so it's time to test it. Here we are. Let's turn this thing on and make sure it starts up okay. So that's a good sign. It came on, no weird noises, no weird visual indications. So now let's go out back and make sure everything's okay out there. All right guys, so as you can see, there's no smoke coming out, so I must have got everything put back together right. Again, I'm going to give it a couple of days to just see how it responds to the new card. I don't know if there's any kind of learning process or anything that has to go on with it, but that's what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give it a couple of days and see what happens. All right, so it's been about 4 days now since I replaced the card in this refrigerator, and I think I'm seeing a little bit of improvement. So as you can see here, the temperature is about 4 degrees in the freezer now, and I'll be honest with you, I think it's going to get even lower as time goes on. So you know, I guess maybe that card did have something to do with the issue that we were having in here. But regardless of what it did to help this freezer get down to this temperature, I'm still glad that I got that card and I got it replaced, because the more I think about that charred connection between the AC power cord and the circuit board, I really do think that we were looking at some kind of failure of this refrigerator completely on the AC side of it, and maybe even a fire. Now maybe it wouldn't have been a full-blown fire, maybe we would have just let the smoke out of the circuit board. You know, I don't know what that would have looked like, but I think given enough time, we would have seen a significant problem with this refrigerator. So I'm glad we got that thing replaced. And again, I'm just gonna kind of keep an eye on the temperature over the next few days, maybe play with some of the settings on the refrigerator, see how it reacts, and see if we can keep this thing down to where it's supposed to be. So that's gonna do it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. And until next time, happy camping and stay safe out there.